That was a big bite.
That started to affect me before I even ate it.
Welcome to Politicians in Pain, the show where we put your local elected officials' public speaking skills to the test in a hot sauce crucible. Today's guest is Dennis Galvin, who currently serves on the Westford Finance Committee. That's not an elected board, but Dennis is also a longtime veteran of the Planning Board, which is elected. He's a frequent attendee of both selectmen meetings and town meeting, and he's also a leader in the Republican Town Committee in Westford, making him one of Westford's more well-known politicians. Dennis, what's the best way for your constituents to get in contact with you?
My cell phone number, which is 978-846-2635. Always there, and we'll always get back to you.
Excellent. So before we get into this, I have to ask, how are you with spicy foods?
Oh, I'm fair to minimum. I'm kind of a journeyman when it comes to that. I'm not an expert, but I'm a journeyman. I can hold my own on that to a point. But I understand you got some really dynamite here, so...
We do. So we'll see how it goes, and we'll see how you do.
Well, I'm happy that there's at least two of us doing this, because, you know, if it should be two playing Russian roulette, because if not, it's just a extended suicide. So you're here, and I'm happy.
This one is ancho and marita.
All right, let's see what happens. Not bad.
In your history, you've been in politics for quite a while now. What has been your most memorable experience as part of these committees?
One memorable experience was an individual who I'm not going to name didn't like the decision. I got up and threw a pen and a chair at us and walked out the door.
Okay, yeah, we have 2 and 2. That does not pass.
See, you people are so stupid. I am sick and tired of your crap. Every one of you people need to get a goddamn clue. I really don't give a crap. What's not necessary, you treat me like this. Uncalled for what goes on in this town, especially from you. Dennis, don't tell me it's enough. You're not my goddamn mother, okay?
And I'm telling you,
I don't give a crap.
Please leave.
You're an incompetent so-and-so.
I think you remember that.
I remember. I recorded that meeting. I know exactly who you're talking about. that was a highlight.
You asked
for
me the memorable meeting. That was a memorable meeting.
You were at the selectmen meeting the other
yes,
night where they were
was.
talking about establishing
Yes,
the stormwater utility. What do you think about that? Are you excited to pay the extra $80 for your house to have stormwater?
You mean the driveway tax? Is
yes.
that what it is? We're going to call it the driveway
yes.
tax. This, as someone said, we're in the early stage of this. I can't wait to hear what people are going to say when they find out they're going to get taxed on their pavement. That's going to be something. No, it's all asphalt. It all comes down to asphalt, doesn't it? Well, I always tell Paul Starrett, the town engineer, the worst of them all is the stormwater management procedure. Whenever we have a discussion about that, I told him that if he read that to me, I'd confess to any crime he wanted just to stop it. That's how bad stormwater management is. But it's important, but geez, is it dry to listen to? Let me tell you.
This one is the Bronx Green Market Sauce.
This one here?
Yep.
All right. Not too bad. I'll wait for it to get into my nostrils before I start really,
3 terms on the planning board. You must have seen a lot of different issues. What was the most difficult thing that you ever had to deal with as a member of the board?
Well, the two biggest decisions that I dealt with were I think Cornerstone Square was a tough period of time. That went back and forth. You can always tell when they're tough because they always wind up in land court. So that was one of them, and the other one, of course, the asphalt plant. That was a wingding and a half. I don't think I have ever seen any issue in this town. I've lived here for 40 years. I don't think I've seen any issue that has driven as much public interest, outrage, and concern as that particular issue. That was a very, very divisive and a very, very intense thing. I've never seen the town get that worked up over anything. So not even a bad football decision or a game or something like that. They were mad about this. So.
Yeah. This third one is Pirate's Lantern. This is a nice
Pirate's
little
Lantern.
mustardy sauce.
Supposed to get us through the fog, is that what it is? Yeah, it is mustard. Not bad.
What would you say are the most important values for a public servant to hold, and how do you try to live up to those values in your public service?
I think the most important is honesty. People have to perceive that you're telling the truth, and they have to believe that you're going to stand up for what you say. That's my opinion. There's some people who disagree with that. They don't think that's important, but I do. I happen to believe that. There are times that you have to, when something that, you come up against something and you have to make an accommodation or it's just the nature of political life that there are competing interests, people are going to have differences, and you can't always get what you want. But so long as they understand that you're actually trying to live up to what you say, and you're trying to get along with everybody fairly, I think they give you a pass. It's when you deliberately deceive them, or you go under the table with something like that. That's when you're going to have, in my opinion, you should have a problem. And if somebody doesn't have a problem with that, then they better start thinking about things, because you want somebody to be. If somebody's sitting in one of these chairs on any committee, you want them to be honest. That's the first thing you have to have. It helps if they're funny too, but because these meetings are long, as well as you know, and if somebody can crack a joke once in a while, at least it kind of makes it a little easier to take for 2.5, 3 hours, right? Queen Majesty.
Scotch bonnet.
God
and
save the
ginger.
Queen. All right, here we go. Not bad.
What would you say is the most important lesson that you've learned from history?
Most important lesson in history. People ultimately and fundamentally want a society that's fair, and they want it fair for everybody. Now, there's been differences of opinion about what that means and all this, but most people have tried to come out of, history, if you will, from the kings all the way up to now, and all they want is they want to be able to be prosperous, they want to be able to be safe, and they want to be able to enjoy their freedom. And to be able to live the life they want. And that, I think, is the story of history. It's developing that stage. And people who come along that try to restrict that, they come out and they think they have the best idea, and everybody else has to kowtow to that best idea. That's when you have troubles in history. So, people are the best judges of their own destiny, and all you're supposed to do is allow them the opportunity to be able to exercise it. That's all.
It's that good old American liberty.
I believe in that very strongly.
Excellent.
I really do.
So are there any lessons from history that you think we as a society haven't quite learned yet, and maybe we might have to keep repeating that lesson until we get it?
I think the biggest lesson is that there's no easy way to something, all right? I mean, the price of, as we talked about freedom requires a price periodically, and you have to be willing to stand up and exercise that freedom. And sometimes that doesn't always meet with a lot of warm, fuzzy return. You got to be willing to, people call you names, they call you this, they call you that. So as long as people respect differences and they respect people, we're all right. But sometimes I think, in most recent times, I think we're having a problem with respecting differences. And I think if we don't learn to respect them, we're going to have problems.
Mm-hmm. Dirty Dick's hot pepper sauce.
All right, now it looks like we're starting to get into some, all right.
One thing that's always been fascinating to me is kind of that intergenerational aspect of public service and either the military or the police or politics. And what do you think it is that kind of brings a family into that public service type sphere? If you have a care and concern, you want to emulate the people that you really grew up to respect and admire. And I respected and admired my parents very deeply, and I watched them live their lives. I listened to them commenting on politics. They had their opinions and all this, and they said, they always conveyed the idea that there was a duty. You just don't sit here. You have to go out and actively participate, and you have to make the decisions based on your own conscience. And I always tried to do the same thing, and I think I have 4 kids. I think they've all done the same thing. They live their lives. They try to do the right thing, and
you know, they understand their duty as well.
I know your son is in the military, and I know
He was in.
and you were in the police. Does your family have a military tradition going back a long ways, or did that start with you and your son?
No, I think it started with my mother and my father. Both of them were veterans and World War II veterans. I tell everybody if World War II didn't happen, I wouldn't be here. So that's I may be another problem with that whole period. But my uncle was captured at Bataan. He was in the Bataan
Really?
Death March.
Wow.
And my father was a U.S. Army paratrooper, and he jumped in and liberated the camp. And both my father obviously were from Brockton, Massachusetts. So they were mixing, matching, and somebody from Brockton, and my father said yes, so they met. My uncle invited him back to the house in Brockton when they got back to kind of pay respects for doing the liberation. My mother was there. My father met my mother, and the rest is history. My mother was a U.S. Army lieutenant in the Nurse Corps, and she served during the Battle of the Bulge. So I grew up with them, and I grew up with their sacrifices, and I always, as they say about the greatest generation, and at least with regards to my folks, I've never felt as though I've ever measured up to what they've done. And so that probably keeps me moving forward. So, you know.
Wow, that's a good thing to strive for.
Well, they were courageous people. My son was a United States Marine. He served in Iraq in 2006, and he came back without a scratch. Thank God for that. And you know, he made his decision. He knew his grandparents, and he made the decision on his own. And you know, I think we're fortunate that people are willing to take that kind of a risk. You know, so. Well, I'm proud of all of them.
The Hot One sauce was created by the inspiration for this show. It's Los Calientes.
Los Calientes, the hot one. Now that that's a little bite there. I can tell these last four are going to be humdingers.
Yep.
You got me sucking in pretty good here, so you're doing all right.
Can you tell us anything about the experience that you had during your time with the state police that has stuck with you? Is there anything that really stands out?
Yeah, there's a lot of things. I mean, I think probably the lasting thing I did 6 years. On a serious note, I did 5 or 6 years in the crime scene services section. So if anybody watches like CIS or stuff like that, I went and I did we used to do the crime scenes and all that kind of thing. And I probably went to over about maybe 150 murders and probably about close to 250 suicides. So I saw it changed my view of life dramatically when I saw the circumstances that surrounded you know, the deaths. In some regards, the suicides were even more horrendous to watch because, I mean, you know, looking at people, particularly young people who had their whole lives to live with them, and they just decided to give it up one day, and you don't realize how easy it is to just make that decision, and that scared me, you know. And I saw it, and I said that's what stuck with me. The other thing that stuck with me was there is humor within within that culture that you can't really replicate anyplace else. The officers that I work with, who are the most successful and on the level the best, I think, always tempered the stress and everything through great humor. And they not only humor that was just plain funny, but humor that looked into yourself and saw your own pride and all this and turned it and flipped it upside down, you know. And it took the puffing stuff out of you, you know. And I never forgot that. They were great people that I work with, and I miss them. Still in touch with some of them, but that was an experience I'll never forget.
We're gonna get some real heat. This is black garlic and Carolina Reaper.
Garlic. I'm not taking it's going to get me high here, right?
Ah.
Oh yeah, that's hot. You're trying to set me up, Steve. I know it. Wow.
Ah, I noticed you haven't touched the milk yet.
Not yet.
Doing well.
I'm saving it for when I really need it.
So the next one is a little bit of a challenge for you.
All right.
How much of the preamble to the U.S. Constitution can you recite?
All right, let me see. We the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense for ourselves and our posterity, do hereby ordain this Constitution, and then there's one section in there about, in order to form a more perfect union, do establish this Constitution to be able to govern our events. The biggest one, the biggest statement in there is, in order to form a more perfect union, which implies and actually means that this is not a finished product. The country started in, 1789 with a Constitution, and it's a product that keeps working at it. And each generation has to get called to it to be able to take it to the next level. And that's what I've always taken from it. Those other four deals with the establishing justice, should domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, those four basically underlie all the policy issues that you ever want to deal with in politics. So if you know the four, you can classify them right off the bat.
This next one is the bomb.
All right, this is the one I kind of looked at, and I thought that was a skull and crossbones on this thing when I first saw it.
Oh, so, no, it's much worse. That's a nuke.
That's a nuke. Let's see what happens, right? All right.
That was a big bite.
That started to affect me before I even ate it.
Oh, yeah, the moment it hits your nose.
I could feel the vapor going down my throat. Oh, wow. Now, does somebody really think that that's tasty?
That one is made from extract. It is literally only designed to hurt.
Wow. Oh. Yeah, you're right. I can see why. I think that's the stuff they use in OC spray, isn't it?
It very well might be.
Yeah, that's hot. Wow. Woo.
As a Republican in a blue state, Massachusetts,
Good question.
You've lost a number of elections. You've run and lost for selectman, for I think state representative at one point.
Yep, twice.
And yet, you're still serving in government on currently the Finance Committee. How do you maintain the resolve to run again or just to keep serving after you've just lost?
Well, it's the duty. That's what keeps you going. I mean, look, if you're in a democracy, you can't always expect everybody's going to see the same things you are. And not only that, but as you put in a blue state, you're up against forces that aren't just on an even playing field. There are people that depend upon government for contracts, benefits, salaries, all right? And they see any challenge to the status quo as something that might upset their economic situation. So they drive to the polls a lot faster than people who don't have that aspect. Massachusetts has always prided itself, or built its political power. The State House has built its political power on handing out patronage, handing out favors, handing out privileges, and during elections they call those in. And then I think there's also there's some ideological opposition to republicanism in this state, but just because somebody doesn't disagree with you, and that's no excuse to not engage them. And we'll continue to do it so long as these things don't kill me. These are hot. This one, go ahead.
So this next one is Mad Dog 357. It's actually made right here in Massachusetts.
It's not in Leicester.
No, it's in, I believe.
Yeah, these are hot. Go ahead.
Sudbury.
Sudbury. Yeah, I could. These are tough because you can feel the pain before you even bite the thing. Wow.
Oh.
Wow. Yeah, that was we've crossed over into something that you really have to call yourself. Is this really food? It's like taking some kind of a medication.
Yeah, no, it's a very valid question. I consider this my enhanced interrogation techniques. Instead of waterboarding, we have wingboarding.
I told you, if you wanted to get me to confess to something, just read the stormwater management policy. I'll give up in a heartbeat.
That does seem much easier. Getting to the question, what is the difference, or coming back a little bit to the asphalt plant? What is the difference, in your opinion, between light manufacturing and heavy manufacturing? And which one do you think the asphalt plant falls into?
Oh, that's an easy question. I mean, we had it written down in the bylaw. It said if you gave out noxious fumes, used combustible energy, was involved with the manufacturing of heavy-duty materials, and the fire aspect of it was the most important. Just like these damn wings. That is what made heavy manufacturing. And that definition, I thought, qualified. Our town expert backed away from that. I don't know why, but definitely I thought that the asphalt plant was heavy manufacturing. And I don't see how you could disagree with that.
And you were actually one of the 2 holdouts who didn't sign the settlement.
That's right.
What's your reasoning behind that?
Because I didn't agree with it.
What would you like to have seen happen instead?
I would have liked to seen it. I would have saw the process go all the way to land court. And if we were going to have to, get hoisted on our petard, I was going to let the land court judge do it, not doing it ourselves, which is what I thought we did.
And, yeah, and that ended Kelly Ross's political career in Westford.
That's the fortunes of politics and war. All right.
We are almost at the finish line. This last one has a little bit of tradition to it. It's called the last dab. And the tradition is to put a little extra dab on the wing.
All right. I've gone this far. I'm going to do the last one with you. I'll try to do the best I can. All right. You want to check this to see if I did it?
That looks good. It's a nice healthy dab.
Hot ones, man, oh man. Well, I got to tell you one thing. This is a great interrogation technique because it's very difficult to form the response while your mouth is on fire.
That's the show. All right, you ready, Dennis?
Yeah, go ahead.
Cheers.
All right, here we go. Salud. Oh, that tastes like paint remover. You know, or Simonized wax. Wow, here's to you, buddy. Oh yeah. Oh man. Well, you got my nose and my eyes watering, so I think you accomplished what you were trying to do.
All right, so the final question. If you could personally make one change, anything you wanted to the U.S. Constitution, what change would you make?
The Constitution of the United States, in my opinion, is one of the most unique and special documents in the history of mankind. That's how what it does is, what it did, it brought together the so-called haves and the so-called have-nots at the time. And they sat down together, and they were on the verge of a civil war. Any of those, I don't know if you folks know who Daniel Shays was, but Daniel Shays was a small farmer out in Massachusetts, and they tried to balance the debt, the war debt for the Revolutionary War on a lot of these small farmers. And he decided to lead a revolt, which they did, and they tried to take the armory down at Springfield, Massachusetts, and they were stopped. And had that occurred, then there would have been much the same kind of, I guess, turmoil that you saw in France during the French Revolution. The landowners in the country at the time, and the bankers and everybody else said, you know, we got to come up with a law. We got to come up with a. So they came together, but they were able to achieve what I don't think anybody else in history has been able to achieve, and that was the balance between the right of order and the right of individual liberty together. It's a unique balance. You got Alexander Hamilton on one hand, who was very strong on order. You had folks like George Mason, John Adams on the other side, Samuel Adams on the other side, that were very big about democracy, pure democracy, which meant back then, like Thomas Paine, taking property away from people. That's what that was about. And they came to an agreement, which has lasted now for 250 years. It's taken a lot of hits. We just witnessed some very strenuous discussions over Supreme Court justices and things like that. So I have to tell you, I don't think I'd change a thing on it. I wouldn't want to change it or tinker with it. I think it's got all, until the point where it's obvious that something went wrong and then we have to change it, then we change it. But right now, I wouldn't touch it.
Congratulations, Dennis. You have handled the heat. You survived the gauntlet. Now all that remains is for you to pick a camera, 1, 2, or 3, and address the people directly.
All right.
What do you want them to know?
Well, I would say this. There's one thing, if you get anything else from me, get this, please get this. Number one is your government and the way that your government is conducted is your responsibility. You can't sit there and complain about it. You have to be actively involved in it. So 2 things that you want to remember. Number one is you want to always have your eyes on the government, watch what's going on. Don't worry about being liked. Worry about being respected. And the last thing of all is, as we used to say from my old friend Wade Fox, is if you're not sure what the story is, go out and get yourself a second opinion. And so those are the things that I'd leave you with. And I want to thank you for the opportunity. This was a lot of fun.
All
and
right.
I'm going to go and have some Maalox right now.
All right.
So thanks a lot. That was you.
That's our show. Thanks for watching. Big thanks to Nick in the control room and Ryan behind the camera. Politicians in Pain is produced at WestfordCAT by a combination of volunteers and station staff. If you have a local access station in your community and would like to make your own videos and podcasts, check them out. Access centers are always looking for volunteers and friendly faces in their community, so make some time to visit your local access center and get involved. We'll see you next time on Politicians in Pain.
Here you go. Well, that's good ice cream. That's really good. That is the key to break it right there. That just broke it.